All right, to the third section here, which is Hillary Clinton. Here we go. So we need to figure out like what role she played with the Steele dossier, because obviously she was the contender on the Democratic side of the presidential election, and the research that resulted in the Steele dossier was initially funded by Washington Free Beacon, a conservative website during the Republican primaries. And this is what you were talking about, where it's like, is this like a uniparty, like something? Yeah. Because everybody, like, it seemed like even the Republicans were pissed off. Mm-hmm. But to
this was during the primary, during the primary, the traditional GOP, the machine really did not want Trump to win. Yeah, the never Trumpers. Mm-hmm. They really didn't want Trump to win. And so the Free Beacon was working with them to try and harm Trump's chances in the primary.
How did that work out for them?
They got primary, didn't they? A lot of them later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the Democratic, the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign, through the law firm of Perkins Cole, funded by the continued research of Fusion GPS.
Perkins Coy.
I'm sorry.
Perkins Coy.
Coy?
Perkins Coy. Coy.
Sorry, it's these
Coy
sunglasses. Perkins Coy funded and continued research by Fusion GPS, which then hired Christopher Steele to compile the dossier.
If they wanted a real British spy, they could have got Remington Steele.
Exactly. now, yeah, right. Isn't this the same firm that the judge in DC for the January 6ers, or through the insurrection case or whatever, that case, which is going to go bye soon?
I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot of moving parts with that.
Yes, Perkins Coy. Perkins Coy is we'll talk about them a little bit here in a little while, but
okay.
They are key to all the lawfare. All the lawfare goes through Perkins Coy, and one particular person there. We'll talk about him when we talk about CrowdStrike.
Sounds good. All right. So the effect that it had on the presidential election, the allegations when it became significant political issue during and after the 2016 election, although the contents were not widely publicized before then. Its existence and some of its allegations were known to journalists and government officials, but post-election, the dossier unverified claims fueled debates and investigations into potential collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, significantly impacting the public disclosure in the administration's first years. It actually, he literally walked in cut from his knees. He was chopped down at the knees going into the administration because of it. And I think that was the point. The point was not to allow him to come in and finally and set his agenda and say, first 100 days didn't exist.
No.
Because of it.
There were so many personnel changes.
First 2 years.
Yeah, right.
The personnel changes that Trump went through were for multitude of reasons. They were mainly because of this uniparty never Trumper stuff, where he kept finding out who was stabbing in the back, on top of the lawfare and the impeachment stuff and all of. He was just he was running in circles trying, and it was still amazing the things that he did manage to get done, like the Abraham Accords and whatnot, where imagine how much else he could have probably accomplished had he not been sandbagged like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I had a little feedback coming in through there.
Yeah, no. That was I pressed the wrong button there. So then you've got the congressional oversight committee in the case study of Crossfire Hurricane. I believe this is from page 81. The officials also considered part of the investigation the government's handling of certain intelligence that it received during the summer of 2016. That intelligence concerned the purported approval by Hillary Clinton on July 26th, 2016, of a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by the Russian security services. We refer to that intelligence hereafter as Clinton's plan intelligence. DNI John Radcliffe declassified the following information about the Clinton plan in 2020 and conveyed it to the Senate Judiciary Committee. And this is in late July 2016. The U.S. intelligence agencies abandoned insight into the Russian intelligence analysis, alleging that the U.S. presidential candidate Hillary Clinton had approved a campaign plan to stir up a scandal against U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump by tying him to Putin and the Russians, hacking of the Democratic National Committee. The IC does not know when the accuracy of this allegation of the extent to which the Russian intelligence analysis may reflect exaggeration or fabrication. Thoughts?
I mean, that's what we're heading into to talk about here, and then after the next paragraph of notes. You know, this here, what they had to do was construct a narrative, and then they had to find evidence. Right, we're going to investigate crimes unknown. Is how police states work. It's kind of like a lot of times with legislation, they fabricate a problem that they already have a solution for, right? So they're fabricating, but in this case, they need a solution to a problem of their own, corruption, and so they just go with, book him, Dano, but for what? We'll figure it out later. And that's where a lot of this stuff ends up being, where they have all these double agents going through this and going, oh, we got him here, we can do this and we can say that, we'll change this document there. You know, so again, intelligence agencies are obtaining insights and things through their sources again, and eventually it comes up to, like, you know, these handwritten notes that the CIA director had, Brennan. You know, he was briefed. He briefed Obama and his security officials on this, whatever this intelligence was, including the alleged approval by Hillary Clinton in July of 2016 of that proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Trump. And so that was the scandal claiming interference. So, and which is interesting because that's really kind of a diversion from what was really happening with her. And I think that's what Turtle's about to talk about with the CrowdStrike and the servers and things at this point.
You know what? Let's just jump right into it.
Yeah,
Turtle.
that's the next thing.
Yep, you take over. This is it. It's your show now. See you later.
Oh no, this is no. I need you guys here with me so we can talk through this.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. But first things first. So the first time I heard when this, remember we had a little problem with the airports and, you know, 80% of Microsoft servers a couple days ago.
I couldn't clock in.
Yeah, same here. That was the only issue I had was ADP was just like, nope.
Gone.
Yeah. Anybody using Azure services, anybody was using CrowdStrike. Well, CrowdStrike was is a security firm that we've openly mocked for years. And actually, before I get too far in there, I'm gonna play a little clip for you. You guys want to step in the Wayback Machine with me?
Oh, please.
We want to go back to 2012.
Let's go to 2012.
Let's do
2012, because I don't think anybody's going to remember this one. So I'm gonna change my screen here and make sure I'm sharing some audio. And let's make sure I give you the right one. Yeah, here we go.
This is from No Agenda podcast, right?
This is from No Agenda with Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak, the tech grouch. But yeah, so this is back in 2012. And this is the first time I ever heard of CrowdStrike. And I'm just going to play this little clip. I'm not going to zoom in because this page doesn't work real well. It's an audio. So tell me right away if the audio is not working. But This has to do with they were kind of making fun of the fact of, there's all these government contracts and busy work being made, and people are using stuff for grift, and we'll just join them right in the middle of them talking about it, and they bring up this new outfit named CrowdStrike. If my internet will cooperate. I knew I should have started
often sending your resumes into the FBI. There is an alternative, which I'd like to recommend. One of our producers apparently works there. It is the Blackwater of cyber warfare. And I think you should check this outfit out if you're going to send your resume. They are called CrowdStrike. And that is Charlie Romeo Oscar W Delta Strike, crowdstrike.com. A stealth mode security startup. You can join the mission. And do you remember a couple of weeks ago, there was a mock, I think it was a part of State. What was it? Remember they had that like Cyber Week, and Janet Napolitano showed up everywhere and was doing little, talks about, our infrastructure, etc. The CEO
Janet Napolitano, the person that doesn't use email and doesn't probably know how to even boot a computer, that one?
Yeah, that one.
That Janet Napolitano?
That's the one. So the
What about it?
So the CEO of this company, CrowdStrike, they did like a mock, George Kurtz is his name. They did a mock attack, and he was supposed to be, like the CEO of the company that was attacked, and here's how we're going to handle this and how we're going to do stuff. I mean, it's incestuous. So this is the Blackwater. Keep your eye out for CrowdStrike, the Blackwater of cyber warfare, which is going to kick in to high gear right after. I guess next year when when our government gets back and does something.
So I'll go ahead and kill that there, so we don't have to go too much further. But right off the bat, there's some questions about who's this weird startup. They seem to be getting all these crazy government contracts. As they're bringing up, they were describing themselves as the Blackwater of cyber warfare. Now, remember in 2012, was Blackwater a name you really wanted to be associated with?
No, because Blackwater was the outfit that got all kinds of flack for dirty ops in the Afghanistan and Iraqi wars post 9/11. We did not like that.
Right.
Right or wrong.
So
they got
right. So nobody liked them at all. So while we're on the clip train, I'm going to play one more clip from these guys. So we went back to 2012. We're going to hop back in the machine, and we're going to zoom forward to July, late July of 2016, and we're gonna bring a quick clip from them. This is right after the WikiLeaks DNC leaks. This is
back to the Russiagate inception.
Yeah.
Right. We're getting close. Yeah. Mid 2016. So this is going to be from the 28th of July, 2016. And I'm just going to go ahead and play the clip from them. As you heard, they're already familiar with them, and we'll listen to a little bit of this. Again, if my internet
and then if they are the ones who took them, we have to infer that they are the ones then releasing them.
Okay, so this launched quite a big meme, and there's a number of other funny clips we can listen to. But I need to tell you my personal experience because, of course, I went in, read every single report, and it's FireEye. We know who they are. CrowdStrike. Well, those are the guys with that. Isn't the guys with that phony baloney map that they were shopping around with all
the map,
the blips and the blobs.
Right, that phony map.
So you can hire these guys to say anything, I'm pretty sure. But number one is Russia didn't release anything. WikiLeaks. And so when people say Russia released, Russia did this, no, WikiLeaks. And I think that they're making some,
which we've assumed is a CIA operation.
Yes. Well, I don't know about that now, but
no, I think I can still make the argument. I'll tell you why later.
Okay. So anyway, of course, the brain professor in California.
All right, I'll pause it right there and stop. That's enough. So you heard him mention the phony baloney map with the bleeps and the blips. So in cybersecurity circles, CrowdStrike was everybody just made fun of them. They were a joke, and they were most famous for they had this threat index map, and it was a world map. I wish I could find like an archive of it. And it was I think it was originally built in Flash even, and you had this like it looked like something out of a bad 80s movie, you know, of what like the CIA would have up on the big screens in front of them, and it would just have these little things that would pop up and be like server being hacked in San Francisco, you know, network intrusion in Helsinki, and it literally played a sound effect that went pew pew every time one of these would pop up, and it was just constant, and it was used to basically trick people into going, oh, these guys really know what they're doing, they've got this, you know, they've got all these government contracts, we should hire them, and they should be who we use for our network security. So yeah, that gives you a little background.
Hollywood play like you know,
yes,
like we're hacking the mainframe.
no, not even Hollywood. We're talking the asylum. So that gives you kind of a background on what people thought about CrowdStrike way back then.
Fair.
But of course, now I've tried to, you know, that would be it. That would be it.
Called it. I found it.
It's the internet head.
Does it have? Wait, is that live or is that a photo?
It's a photo, but it's like that's the.
So every time one of those little circles would pop up, it had the most annoying sound effect. It literally went pew pew. and it would just sit there and beep. It's exactly that though. That
it
is,
goes those old school, like 8-bit laser sounds, like.
Yes, it wasn't even that good.
It's like missile command for hackers.
Missile command. Oh my god.
Hacking in progress. Hacking in progress.
Listen, I'm in big trouble. You know anything about computers?
So that gives you an idea of kind of how, you know, people that actually knew anything about cybersecurity thought of CrowdStrike. But I found a wonderful thread that kind of consolidates why you should kind of put your radar up and go, something's odd whenever you hear the names CrowdStrike or Perkins Coie or a few other names that we're going to go over for here in a sec. Give me a moment to share with you.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. Yeah, that was the first time I looked up.
I'm a turtle. I'm slow.
While the black-pilled reptilian gets his stuff together, I'd like to thank our sponsors, the wives, because they're the ones, you know, hanging and take care of the kiddos and make sure they were all ready to go. And bedtime, we've been out here on the East Coast having a good old blast of a time, and here's to them.
Yeah, I have to grab another one. Give me a second.
It's been a weekend. We got another long day tomorrow out here. It's kind of like a vacation for all of us. We took some time off.
Yeah, we needed a break. We definitely needed a break because you know, we the one thing that we didn't want to do is sacrifice this show for, you know, for the people that, you know, the diehard fans and the ones that, you know, are here every single week. But we had a really long week this week, a very long week between all of us.
I had a week. You had a week. Your wife had a week. My wife had a week. She had to move clients to another day, and the kind of clients my wife has don't have very good memory, like a Joe Biden, and so they didn't really understand why they were having their appointments moved. But you know, put some ice cream out, and they show up. It's fine.
Choco chip.
Choco chip. But yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, so we just said F it. Like, come down to my house. We're just gonna, you know, go out. We did some barbecuing and went out to the science center with the kids, and I mean, yeah, it's been one heck of a weekend. You know, we enjoyed. It's been a lot of fun.
What you got for us?
I may or may not be just hanging around the pond. So I've got hanging around the pond. So I've got the thread pulled up here finally. If you want to share it.
Let's go.
So this is not a techie thread. I'll give the hat tip to this Against Human Shields, family man Andrew, who consolidated all this. But this was probably the most concise and well documented rundown on CrowdStrike and Perkins Coie. And I just find it really interesting that the day after the RNC, we had to have a massive CrowdStrike outage because they pushed out an update that broke every computer that was running their Falcon software because of a null pointer reference, which means it was never tested on any machine ever because it would have never ran. But yeah, the map. So
Yep, exactly.
just remember that. So anyway, so I'll just go ahead and start digging through this and we can kind of talk about it. But he talks about what we were just talking about. We know now more about Spygate than we did in 2017, but we haven't seen any of CrowdStrike's actual work product, upon which the government attributed, at least initially, the DNC hack to the Russians. Why we haven't will be discussed below. Conclusion of the introduction. See, he writes notes like you do, Roma. It's cool. So,
I mean, you got it from me, so,
that's right. So we'll just go here. So on the 6th of July, the Inspector General for the Intelligence Committee made a referral to the FBI arising from Hillary's use of an unsecured private server and personal email accounts to conduct classified State Department business. So remember, she had a server in her bathroom and it needed to be wiped, like with a cloth, all that stuff. Yeah. So that 4 days later, the FBI opens its formal investigation. We don't have to go through all these documents, but here's the documents proving this. Here's the memo from the Inspector General. Here's the FBI's decision to open the investigation. And we're going to fast forward to July 8th. Now, at this point, none of this has been in the news, obviously. So July 8th, exactly the middle of the same week, the FBI was opening its Hillary email investigation. They entered into an urgent no-bid contract with CrowdStrike for the purpose of telecom, not telecom, because it's not the 90s anymore. It's telecom system analysis in the category of other computer-related services. So, as you know, when the FBI spends money, particularly contracts, things like that, that's public record. So we have this contract summary, CrowdStrike. Hopefully I'm not doxing their business, their public records there. Starts July 8th and it's through July 7th of the following year. The product or service being sold is IT and telecom system analysis and other computer-related services. And here's the details that they're only one source. It was no bid. The reason it was no bid is it was not competed. It was due to urgency. No set aside used, etc. So here we do know that the FBI actually did contract them for these things. So this is not no need for a tinfoil hat. We have the receipts, literally the receipt right here. So
basically said, who do we have on speed dial?
Pretty much.
We're not sure because this is unrelated, supposedly. The FBI desperately needed somebody to do telecom analysis for them. Anyway, later, CrowdStrike official Sean Henry appeared to testify that the CrowdStrike FBI contract was not for technical services at all, but involved providing intelligence. So we'll just go to the hearing where he was being questioned. It says, among your many clients, are you also under contract with the FBI to perform technical services for them? He answered no. Mr. Stewart of Utah, and never have been? No. Okay. We have not provided them technical services. We have provided them intelligence in the past. Okay, as part of a contract or just part of a professional courtesy that you share that type of information? We did it as part of a contract. Is there intelligence listed here? No, it's not. Isn't that interesting? So, okay, are you currently under contract to provide that information to them? I don't think so. Okay. And then this is, you said something, and I want to restate it and tell me if I'm wrong, if I could. You said, I believe, talking about the DNC computer, you had indications that the data was prepared to be exfiltrated, but no evidence it actually left. Did I write that down correctly? Mr. Henry says yes. And in this case, the data I'm assuming you're talking about is the email as well as everything else that they may have been trying to take. And this was part of the congressional hearings into the email leaks and everything. So that came much later. But what's key to keep in mind is the IG notifies the FBI that they found out about the server. And on July 10th, the FBI is opening their formal investigation. But for some reason, 2 days after, before they open their formal investigation, after it's been discovered, they enter in this weird contract that doesn't seem to be for what it was. Okay. So on August 6th of 2015, later in the year, the FBI started warning the DNC that it was being spied on by Cozy Bear, a computer hacking group believed to be Russian. Was CrowdStrike involved with spotting the problem? We don't know. And this will go into the Spygate project where they're looking at the documents that Congress provided. And I can I've got some other stuff. Remember Cozy Bear, okay? That name basically comes out of the ether from CrowdStrike and nowhere else. Nobody else had ever heard of this Cozy Bear. And there's another one that you'll hear called Fancy Bear. So this is just showing the timeline that was provided in the congressional details. This is a response to questions, written questions that the committee had. Don't need to go too far into that because I'm sure you can put the links to this thread in the show notes later for people. But
gotcha.
So this is what's going on between like July toward the end of the year in 2015. So we're all the way back in 2015. So a lot of this hasn't been made public. You know, we know more about it later from the hearings, like the stuff these sources are showing. But this is what CrowdStrike's doing with the FBI. So in December of 2015, they published a paper on hacking groups, including the Russian Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear. Coincidentally, this is written up by the Washington Free Beacon in February of 2016. Now, didn't you mention them a little while ago, Roma?
I did. No, what was this?
That's
the Beacon. Yeah, that's right.
The Beacon. That's back when Fusion GPS was working with the Beacon to keep Trump from winning the primaries. So, and here's this will take us right to the article. If we wanted to look at it of them, this is where the start of he's working with the Russians begins. Is this article where they talk about Russian Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear, and I can show you some more references to it. But this is February 2016 is when that starts getting floated that Trump's a Russian asset, and that all ties back to Fusion GPS. Now they basically use CrowdStrike's information. Write us a paper that says that these hacking groups exist, and we'll go ahead and we'll leak that to the news. And then we can use that news article to back up what we're saying. It reminds me of something that happened in like 2003 when somebody told Yahoo that a certain country had weapons of mass destruction, and then went before Congress and said because Yahoo reported on it, we believe this is true. So
we call this.
What
didn't they call? What did you call this? Propaganda laundering,
information laundering,
yeah.
All right, so that's what they're doing. So also in December of 2015, there's an incident where somehow a computer firewall broke down in the DNC. Now he says burn here, but he's talking about Bernie, the millionaires and the billionaires. But Bernie's staffers got into some files they weren't supposed to get to. And the DNC then cut the Bernie campaign off from the DNC servers and data. And I didn't mean to click. Let me get back to where I'm at. All right. So Bernie sued him. So here's the lawsuit filed on the 18th of December
Wow.
2015, between Bernie 2016 Incorporated, the
Why
campaign
is this the
to
first
elect
time I'm hearing
Bernie.
about this?
This must have been when we heard about how the DNC screwed Bernie over because he was trying to run.
And he was like, there was a lot of support behind him.
If it would
Like,
have been
a
Bernie
lot.
v. Trump, it would have been a real election. Like, it would have not
So-
been, this landslide it was before. But anyway, no, that makes sense
All right.
now. So because then Bernie ends up going off into the ether after that. I don't know
Well,
how.
no, this is very early. Remember, this is late 2015. We're into the first early primaries right now. So, but
Okay.
this is important. This is important because Bernie staffers got into files that the DNC didn't want them to see, and they were going to use them. And I'm sure it was like donor lists, things like that they could use to help their campaign. DNC kicks them out of the server completely, and they sue over this, saying that it's election interference.
There's two
And that
things.
ends up okay.
Real quick. So number one, this is going to be the end of the season of a 3-part series. This is called the precursor. So everything we're talking about is pretty much all the way up to the election. All right. Next week is going to be what happened during the presidency, and then the third week is going to be on the postlude. Now, with that being said, when you're looking at what they did to Bernie here, and Skrapp, going back to what you said about a uniparty, they literally did this on both sides at the exact same time.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're about to see is they did it using the same people.
Mm-hmm.
So this case doesn't go very far. So the DNC is represented by Bob Bauer of Perkins Coie.
Mm-hmm.
The case was before this name you hear a lot in the news, by the way, Judge Chutkin. Judge Chutkin. Yeah. But anyway, not much happened in her court because they settled it pretty quickly. So the case was filed on the 18th of December. It was terminated on May 3rd. And they settled it outside of court. But the Bernie case settled on the 29th of April after the DNC and Bernie jointly hired CrowdStrike to examine the DNC's systems and data. And CrowdStrike issued a report. That report has never been released to the public, by the way. But of course, DNC's counsel, Perkins Coie, would have to be involved in this because the DNC is being represented by Perkins Coie. This is a lawsuit between Bernie and the DNC. They have to be involved in the settlement in some way, shape, or form. And they both jointly hire CrowdStrike to do the investigation into how this happened. Wow. And here's the DNC statement about it. There's a key part here. It's kind of hard to see, but the parties proceeded in the course of the hearing to settle the immediate issues before the court. The DNC agreed to restore access to Vote Builder by the next day, and the campaign agreed to cooperate in an independent investigation of the data breach. The Sanders campaign also agreed as part of the investigation to assume a share of the costs in the investigation. And then this talks about cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike. Has concluded the independent investigation agreed to by the DNC and Bernie 2016. It identified evidence of unauthorized access via 4 user accounts from the Bernie 2016 campaign, and all unauthorized access occurred in a 1-hour period from 10:41 to 11:42 p.m. or a.m. Eastern on December 16th. It goes through that. Basically, they searched for proprietary Hillary for America score data across 11 states. So they were using one of the tools to figure out where to do their advertising, things like that. This is also this is something we found in WikiLeaks when the emails came in. So you can, like I said, dig into that more later. But it's the exact same day that they settled this lawsuit. Notice it said that part of this settlement was that the DNC agreed to restore access to Vote Builder by the next day. So this happened pretty quickly. On the same day.
Well, it had to.
Right. Well, I'm saying that was their agreement. Okay. So the hiring of CrowdStrike and agreeing to give them access to settle the court case all happened on April 29th. That's the important part. So it was the exact same day on April 29th that the DNC, with the FBI's urging, spotted the Fancy Bear intrusion. And the Fancy Bear intrusion and its Perkins Coie attorney, Michael Sussman. This is the other name. We've been saying CrowdStrike and Perkins Coie a lot. Michael Sussman is a very important name that if your ears should perk up and turn red anytime you hear him. Okay.
Sounds
he hired or yeah, he is very sus. You'll see as you continue to dig into this rabbit hole. But he hired or rehired CrowdStrike to investigate this intrusion into the DNC systems. Now remember, how do we know about Fancy Bear? Because CrowdStrike made Fancy Bear up, or the only source we have to know that they exist is the reports they put out in December of 2015 claiming that Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear exist. Well, the FBI, who's been working with them on telecom intelligence, has said, no, DNC, you really need to hire these guys, right? And of course, it needs to be hired through Perkins Coie. So this is very important, and he gets into this here. Like, so how did the engagement with CrowdStrike come about? Whose decision was it to retain it? It was my recommendation, but the decision was the DNC. So this is Sussman being questioned. Can you tell me when CrowdStrike was officially retained? Sure. So I was contacted on the last Friday of April in 2016. I don't know if it's the 29th or 30th, at very end of the month. And I was asked maybe sometime in the afternoon, can I get on a call within an hour? And the DNC believes they found an intruder. Long story short, Michael Sussman says, I know just the guys to call. CrowdStrike. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
And again, this is under the committee. This is under the committee hearings. So
It's all public.
everybody got all public record, right? Well, all this is backed up. We've got the receipts. They're all in one place. So this is very handy. So at the time Perkins Coie rehires CrowdStrike, two things are already going on. CrowdStrike's already engaged at the FBI and the DOJ. At a March 2016 conference, Sean Henry is the War Games teammate with John Carlin. John Carlin is the person at the DOJ supervising the Hillary Clinton probe about her illegal server. How convenient that these guys are going to work together on their in this war game that they're having to practice for a cyber attack. Meanwhile, Perkins Coie's already engaged Fusion GPS for the Russian-related opposition research on Trump. So Trump's now cinched up the nomination in the RNC. Fusion GPS has been doing all this opposition research. And so they're going to now sell their opposition research to the DNC. Okay, so this is done through the law firm to create the patina of confidentiality and privilege. So what's going on is DNC is going to try and hide using Perkins Coie that they're working with these people because they can claim that it's all under attorney-client privilege. So here's the consulting agreement between them. We have all this. We know this ownership of the work product. They're saying it's going to be exclusively owned by the DNC and all this stuff. Anyway, I don't believe we've ever seen CrowdStrike's contract, and I did some research. I couldn't find it either, but it's obvious Sussman did the hiring to maintain control over what's disclosed to anybody else. Like, for example, in a congressional hearing into where this information got laundered and stuff. They can always just claim privilege because all these people are now clients of Perkins Coie. And in particular, Sussman at Perkins Coie. So here's some more of the questioning. So what does that mean? You never had a contract, Mr. Henry, with the DNC directly? I mentioned it was Michael Sussman from Perkins Coie. Good, thank you. And that's when his lawyer, that's who this Mr. Williams is Henry's lawyer from Perkscoy. He says, so the one thing I want to say is, and I think we're not waiving any attorney-client privilege over the work product here today. That being said, we're trying to, you don't hear me piping up and say, don't say this, don't say that, because we want Sean to be able to give you the information that was relevant to this investigation so you have it. You get the idea. He's literally like, be careful what you ask him, because I might tell him to quit answering questions because we'd be violating attorney-client privilege stuff here. So that's from, like I said, the same hearing where Mr. Stewart was being questioned on the Hill. So
they're using Perkins Coy. Let me get this right. They want to be able to do these because the federal government is. You can get at their documentation when you have FOIA requests, but when they start contracting with private firms, and especially with
before you go too far, this is the DNC, not the federal government.
Okay, so DNC, they're still a private entity essentially,
right?
Even though they deal with getting candidates elected, but they're nonetheless they're distancing themselves. They're compartmentalizing the entities they're using to do this attribution to Trump and this investigation into Trump and all these things with Russia. They're building these cases to divert from the fact that they want to hide
that they're working directly with each other.
Right.
And the way they're going to hide that is if Congress says, hey, we're subpoenaing this contract and this work product that the DNC had their lawyer make. So anything the lawyer makes, when you hear work product and you're talking about lawyers, they're talking about like their documentation and stuff that they use when building defenses. So Congress says, hey, we're subpoenaing the contract that the DNC had with CrowdStrike. So we can see that CrowdStrike and the DNC were working direct. Well, they never had a contract. See, that we hired them as their attorney, and you can't see that documentation because that's behind the wall of attorney-client privilege.
Oh, they're using it as a shield so they can't be investigated.
Right, and it'll make a little more sense.
Right,
it'll make a little more sense shortly.
Okay.
Continue. So the DNC was specifically warned by the FBI regarding Fancy Bear, which who else was working for the FBI? You know, again, so the FBI gets told by CrowdStrike that this is happening because of this Russian hacking group, that they're the people who identified them, you know, or whatever. So FBI contractor and Fancy Bear expert CrowdStrike was initially unsuccessful in protecting the DNC from it. So the only company in the world that knows about this hacking group, Fancy Bear, is somehow also the company that's in charge of protecting them from it. And they just couldn't do it, according to CrowdStrike. At least according to the Mueller report, many DNC emails got by CrowdStrike and somehow got to WikiLeaks. So, the massive
when you talked about double agents earlier, this is what happens when you have double agents. Because there's always
keep in mind.
Go ahead.
A lot of people think that there's a guy named Seth who might have given those emails to the Russians or to the WikiLeaks. I mean, not some Russians that hacked in from halfway around the world and somehow broke the speed of light, transferring data onto a USB stick.
Yeah, I remember looking into these things, and also with the was this Goosifer and Goosifer 2.0 were the at one point that all gets kind of muddy. This is the first DNC leak. Okay, but still the thing with those was that the metadata, which is all the fancy little numbers on a file that tell you how it was made, when it was made, and what file system it was on, they wanted to say that this was hacked by Russians when you looked at the files, it was like copy pasta zip folder into a USB thumbstick. Right?
Yeah, at approximately at just shy of 480 megabits per second.
And also just shy of this Seth Rich's death, because a lot of those emails after that don't exist in that dump. So
Right.
Coincidence.
So just going back to he backs up a little bit, and he said we don't have the contract, but we know it's probably similar to the consulting agreement with Fusion GPS. This is a copy of the document that was provided to Congress.
Oh, a black sheet of paper. I wonder if they've got a fax machine that we can just tie them all together in a loop and just hit go.
Careful who you share that idea with.
I don't condone it.
No, actually, you know what? It kind of reminds me of something.
Oh,
breaking news!
Is that a white paper though? Good idea.
Stop reminding me about the Blue Man Group. All right, so at this point, a lot of people have figured out why the DNC uses Perkins Coie, and particularly Sussman, who's really involved in a lot of these things. His strategy of hiring vendors like Fusion GPS and CrowdStrike for the DNC, it works like a charm. It hides pass-through payments from the Federal Election Commission. They don't have to do all those filings saying that we're working with this company and that company. And congressional investigators didn't even try and challenge the assertions of privilege. Durham pretended to, but he really didn't. Okay. And as we know, nothing really came out of the Durham stuff. It was, hey, let's try and appease some people. But Sussman and Perkins Coie were less concerned with providing legal advice and more concerned with promoting political narrative in the press. Thus, while CrowdStrike failed to protect the DNC emails, it did join Sussman in getting ink in Washington Post. And this is the first time I ever heard of Sussman was when this happened. So if we go back, the Russian government hackers penetrated the DNC and stole opposition research on Trump. So that was their excuse on how all this ended up in the press. And this was on the 14th of June in 2016. What's interesting is, so this gets posted in WAPO, and less than 6 minutes later, Michael Sussman is the first person to link to it on Twitter. Good old Twitter 1.0. Washington Post, Russian government hackers penetrated the DNC, stole opposition research on Trump, and he links to it. Now, somehow he was the first person to find this and tweet it out, and it's less than 6 minutes after it's published, almost like they coordinated it. Anyway, in any event, CrowdStrike supposedly authors 3 draft reports. 2 in August of 16 and 1 that we don't know the date. And he says purportedly because all we know is they describe that they wrote these reports. These reports, nobody has them. Okay. But these were draft reports prepared at the direction of DNC's counsel. Now, who's DNC's counsel? Michael Sussman of Perkins Coie. And around the same time, Sussman is also simultaneously helping draft a white paper as a part of an effort by others to trick the FBI into investigating Trump's alleged electronic communications with a Russian bank. So when you go down this rabbit hole, you're going to eventually hear the name Alpha Bank. Okay? Mm-hmm. Alpha Bank used a mail server, their mail server provider. Trump Tower has a lot of businesses in it. One of the businesses is a server farm down in the basement. And one of the clients in that server farm was the email provider that Alpha Bank was using, and that's where they had one of their CDN endpoints. That's how the FBI tries to tie in, has struck in them, that Trump is obviously working with the Russians because Alpha Bank sent emails through a service that happened to have a New York endpoint that was in the basement of Trump Tower.
So basically, let's make this more like a physical thing. You know, when you go to the bank and you go to the teller thing, but you're not at the window, you're like down under the awning, and you use the tubes. Mm-hmm. Like imagine those tubes running through coincidentally running through your property that you're leasing out to somebody else. And because that somebody else is then doing business with somebody else, they now have access to all of your tubes running through your building for your communications. Like,
the easier way to think about this, is, Roma, should you decide to start a newsletter, and let's say you sign up for MailChimp and use MailChimp to send your newsletter.
Right.
Well, that means you're in business with everybody else that's ever used MailChimp. And not even that. Let's say MailChimp leased server space in a building owned by the Blue Man Group. That means you were obviously doing business with the Blue Man Group. So
Was that what they were trying to get through? Was that
that's how they got the wiretapping stuff through the FISA courts for
right.
Power.
Oh, right. so you, because of the association of one business with two other ones, you were now in partnership. Wow,
remember what Turtle clarified for us earlier about FISA courts.
Mm-hmm.
If they can investigate one, they can investigate the first level, associations around them. So because of that, they were able to then, it physically exists within Trump Tower. So therefore, all of Trump Tower.
Right.
Trump Tower.
Which obviously means that they have daily meetings with Trump himself.
Mm-hmm. Apparently.
The thing is, it's not even Trump's businesses and the other business don't do any business together. It's a vendor that they happens to do business of two different completely types of business with them, but they happen to be use one of these physical locations. So, yeah, it's crazy. So Sussman's doing that. He bills Hillary's campaign for that, but he isn't candid about the identity of the client. I'm not going to go through all this because it would take a long time. But basically, Sussman's playing a shell game of who's doing what. It's all information laundering. Okay, so and he kind of tries to hide the fact that the Hillary campaign paid for this white paper. So this was more of that information laundering we talked about earlier. True to form, Sussman's all over the CrowdStrike trickle of information to the FBI. Elvis Chan included. Elvis Chan, you're going to find, is one of the lead guys in the Hillary Rodham Clinton investigation. Everything was personally vetted by him, and the FBI never is given access to DNC's actual server. So remember, the FBI and everybody's saying that the Russians hacked Hillary's server, and that's where the WikiLeaks got their information. And here's your documentation. This is from the committee, Russia investigation only. Right here on August 31st, 2016, more than 2 months after AD Traynor met with senior DNC officials at FBI headquarters, the FBI received a draft of CrowdStrike's report that ASAC blank, it's redacted, described as heavily redacted. Traynor became frustrated, and he told the committee that when he finally received a copy of CrowdStrike's report, he doubted the completeness because he knew outside counsel had reviewed it. So again, same outside counsel the DNC has is getting to clean up all these documents that go before Congress. So, just some evidence of that is that Sussman was able to sign off on everything here. Okay. Even when Comey,
what he's doing right now.
Oh, right now he's helping run the lawfare against Trump and trying to keep him off ballots, things like that.
Gotcha.
Because he still works for Perkins Coie, still works for the DNC. Well, I know we're diving deep. This is a lot for people, but this is important. So Comey, when he testified about the FBI not having direct access to DNC's servers and their reliance on and they relied on CrowdStrike, real brief. Our forensics folks would always prefer to get access to the original device or server that's involved, so it's the best evidence. Were you given access to do forensics on those servers? We were not. A highly respected private company eventually got access and shared with us what they saw there. And he's like, "Is that typical?" He says, "No." And he says, "Was there one request or multiple?" There's multiple requests at different levels. Ultimately, what was agreed to is this is cut off if you go digging into where the links go. ultimately, the FBI agreed. CrowdStrike will give us images of the server, and we'll do forensics on the images, and we'll just agree that that's right. So CrowdStrike failed to prevent any hack, but it succeeded in lobbying the feds to publicly push its client's Russian interference native. CrowdStrike's Alperovich did this from Rome. The same week, Steele's in Rome doing the same thing for the same attorneys and the same client. So that's where the Steele dossier gets tied in. All this is happening together. The DNC leaks, the Steele dossier, all this is happening in Rome. Here's the Politico articles about it. Steele wrote on July 5th, 2016, documenting his meeting with FBI officials at his offices in London, as well as his notes from an October 3rd, 2016 meeting in Rome with several agents involved in Crossfire Hurricane. So we're back to where we started this episode with. And this is talking about the fact that this is CrowdStrike on October 7th. So this same week, they're all for some reason in Rome working together to get data pushed out about the fact that Trump is a Russian agent. So initially, the FBI declined to publicly attribute the DNC email leaks to Russia. It was the Department of Homeland Security with Lisa Monaco and Phyllis Schneck and DNI James Clapper who did that. Neither ever got any real serious scrutiny of that. So here's the joint statement from the DHS and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence on Election Security. And here's the published date, October 7th, 2016, captured on archive on the Wayback Machine, basically blaming the Russians for the hack. This guy's getting a little biased, but I'm not gonna give him too much hard time on this. Clapper is also the guy that we know he's lied to Congress. He got away with that. He's also the first guy that signs the former IC officials letter that said that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. Remember that one? So, the one that the FBI said, no, it wasn't Russian disinformation because we used it to prosecute Hunter. So anyway, and this is just some evidence that he's being paid to speak at Perkins Coie in June of 2016. So, and then the last thing I'm going to point out, and remember what we were saying when we went in the Wayback Machine in 2012? And we played some video about the Blackwater of cybersecurity and all that. Well, what's really odd is that when Comey reopens the Wiener laptop investigation just before the election, CrowdStrike Sean Henry was on TV to discuss it, and he's identified as a former FBI guy. Well, he wasn't just some former FBI guy. If you pull up his LinkedIn, and let me see if I can find it real quick while we're talking. Let me see if I can find his Sean Henry CrowdStrike. LinkedIn.
These guys. These guys have, like you were saying, it's like Tom Clancy level. These people have the perfect profiles, and then they want to disregard a lot of those disqualifiers for getting what they want, and go, "Oh, we're just going to pick and choose what we want to say about this, that, or the other," just like the news.
Yep.
All right. Well, we definitely have. I know this is a lot of information for everybody that's here, but we will have the second episode for during the presidency coming up here next week. So we're going to go ahead and kind of end it there and let you guys bask in the mountain of information we just threw at you. But but trust me, we've got a lot more where that came from.
Let me give you one last thing, because I wasn't able to find it as quickly as I thought I'd be able to, but we'll just go to CrowdStrike's live site right now. And this guy wasn't just working for the FBI. He wasn't some random FBI guy before he went to CrowdStrike. Mr. Henry oversaw half of the FBI's investigative operations as the executive assistant director, including all FBI criminal and cyber investigations worldwide, international operations, and the FBI's critical incident response to major investigations and disasters. He also managed computer crime investigations spanning the globe, established the National Cyber Investigative Joint Task Force, and received the Presidential Rank Award for Meritorious Executive for his leadership in enhancing the FBI's cyber capabilities. So that's basically what he did for a living for years before 2012 when he goes to CrowdStrike. He wasn't just some nobody. This is the guy that literally wrote the textbook that the FBI uses for investigating cybercrime.
So basically, like it's like being a military member, and then
He was brass, basically.
and then getting out of the military, and then going in as a contractor for the military. That's basically what he did.
Yes, digital. Yeah, it's like we said earlier. It's a Blackwater.
Except he wasn't just some he wasn't just some random guy working in those fields. He was the one who developed the entire program the FBI uses.
That's insane.
So the revolving door between the bureaucracy and the oligarchy, and the military, the technocracy, the technological military industrial complex. Let's just throw all of them in there. It's basically what it is. All for the means of trying to divert from the fact that Hillary Clinton was not using secured, processes and was doing things on the back end. So let's just forget all about that and talk about Russia, and then also to get Trump. It worked out conveniently for them, didn't it?
Right. And because I don't want to die in my sleep and I'm not suicidal.
I mean, it's just a giant hoax.
There we go.